It's been a whirlwind of electrified news at Volvo of late, so here's a quick recap if the Swedish brand has been off your radar. Chasing cars. Honest reviews of your next car.
Brought to you by
In 2021, Volvo announced that it would go fully electric by 2030. And since then, it's been the only brand in Oz that's offered some form of electrification in every internal combustion car. Last year, it launched the XC40 Recharge Pure Electric, which was the brand's first dedicated EV, and the MY22 version went on to become a sellout. Then late last year, Volvo Australia decided it was going to jump the gun of its parent company and go completely EV in Australia by 2026, just 3 years from now. And at the same time, Volvo Australia launched this, the C40 Recharge Pure Electric, which is Volvo's first ever only EV model. Now up to speed, what exactly is the C40 Recharge Pure Electric? Well, the C40, as I call it for brevity, is essentially a coupe version of the XC40 Recharge Pure Electric, which shares its high voltage bits with Polestar 2. And as a dedicated EV model, the C40 is perhaps the truest indicator of where Volvo is going in future with electrification. So let's check it out. First, a couple of basics, and the C40 nameplate is actually a reboot of a small hatchback that Volvo released years ago. However, as mentioned, this version is essentially the XC40 with a new swoopy, coupe-like crossover bodywork. Today's electric C40 comes in two variant choices, a single motor version that's referred to as the P6 in Volvo literature, that packs a single 170 kilowatt and 330 newton meter electric motor on the front axle and wants for $75,990. However, this version is the top dog P8, which fits dual motors and swings a much larger 300 kilowatt and 660 newton meter stick. And its price is $83,490. Some quick stats, well, the dual motor version packs a 78 kilowatt hour battery, which is much larger than the 69 kilowatt hour version in the single motor. And this dual motor version comes with a claim of 450 kilometers of range WLTP, which is 12 kilometers longer than the single motor version. The recharge time for this version is around 40 minutes on 150 kilowatts DC rapid charging. Speaking of rapid, the acceleration claim for this car is just 4.7 seconds, although we are going to take it to our test track and validate that in the real world. Elsewhere, the features are mostly the same whichever trim level you choose, but the flagship P8 exclusively fits 20-inch wheels that look so large that the C40 has almost cartoonish proportions. You also need to step up to the dual motor version to get premium Harman Kardon sound, a 360-degree camera system and faux leather trim, which brings us neatly to the interior, so let's check it out. Disclosure time, I'm a big fan of contemporary Volvo interior design. It's clean, it's minimalist, and it's oh so Swedish, and has a look and a vibe that's completely unlike the German, Korean or American EV manufacturers who make rivals for the C40. Highlights? Well, I really like the portrait style multimedia screen, these wonderful vertical oval air vents, and this sort of carpeted concave effect on the door trims. And these quirky inlays, which are backlit and glow in the dark, are particularly inspired. However, another thing that I do like about contemporary Volvos is the richness and material choice, and frankly the C40 isn't quite up to Volvo's usual standards. A lot of the touch points are very tactile, although it's a little bit more plasticky in here than you might find in, say, a high-end XC90, and it does feel a little built to cost. The seating is, well, just okay. They're a bit lumpy and not quite as comfy as they look, and the fake leather isn't quite as nice and tactile as you might find in, say, a Lexus. Despite the large panoramic glass roof, it does feel a little bit claustrophobic in here though, not to a fault. The roof is tinted though, I do wonder how much heat will come through during a hot Aussie summer. And while I do like the portrait style multimedia, it does use an Android Auto operating system and does take a little bit of getting used to. The Google mapping isn't quite as good as some proprietary systems, there's no wireless Apple CarPlay, and you have to physically reconnect the phone after every startup. And the reconnecting phone thing is a bit of a pain given that the car basically starts up automatically as soon as you get in and turns off the handbrake automatically. The digital instrumentation is nice and clear though, it's very simple and there's not a lot of user customization. Right, let's check out the second row. Usually the big advantage of EVs is packaging flexibility and particularly the roominess in row 2 of the EVs, but in the C40, well, not quite so much. It's quite cozy in here and it feels more claustrophobic than the XC40, and there's nowhere near as much room as, say, Hyundai's Ioniq 5. Access to the second row is also pretty ordinary, but to be fair, once you're in here, head, knee and shoulder room is actually pretty decent. The good news is you do get a lot of appointments in the back, such as dual air vents, dual USB-C ports, rear seat heating, dual cup holders, and pretty decent door bins that are carpeted. Next up, the boot. Despite the sloping tailgate, the C40's 413 litres of boot space only loses 6 litres to the XC40. It's quite a nice square and usable space, and under the floor you get a Type 2 portable charger kit, although there is no space saver spare. Right, let's check out running costs. So how did the C40 Pure go on our test? Well, it returned consumption of 20.9 kilowatt hours per 100 and a maximum range of 373 kilometres. And that 373 kilometres is 17% less than its 450 kilometre claim. Charging from 50 to 350 kilometres of highway range took an average of 40 minutes and 31 seconds and required 62.7 kilowatt hours for an average speed of 79 kilowatts. We have developed our own real-world EV highway range and charging tests, which can be more realistic than manufacturer claims. For our real-world range test, we drive a 200-kilometre loop of varied highway terrain driven at a GPS speed of 100 kilometres per hour. Next, using the car's real-world range, we time how long it takes to recharge from 50 to 350 kilometres of highway range, reflecting a road trip. Our test stays consistent across all EVs, rewarding efficient cars and quick recharging rather than just big batteries. Ownership? Well, the electric C40 comes with 5 years of unlimited kilometre warranty with 8 years of warranty on the high voltage battery. Volvo offers free servicing for the first 3 years and intervals are along 24 months and 30,000 kilometres. Fun fact, the C40 weighs 2,158 kilograms. That's right, it's a real porker. But then you bury the right foot and all that weight just seems to disappear. I got the chance to drive the 170 kilowatt single motor version at the Australian launch quite a bit, and I gotta say its energy and acceleration was merely adequate. But this dual motor version with 150 kilowatts on each axle is a real rocket ship. It's really that electric torque that's the great party trick. The thrust is instant and it's huge, anytime and anywhere. But the interesting bit is that Volvo seems to have rolled back the throttle response compared to a lot of the EVs that are out there. It's not too peaky and the throttle input is quite progressive, which is really handy for driving around town. It only gets really fiery when you push the throttle quite a fair bit down and bury the right foot. So far so great, but what I'm not a fan of is the energy regeneration system. Rivals such as Hyundai Ioniq 5 and Kia EV6 offer very light regeneration to very aggressive one pedal regeneration in progressive stages. And you can adjust through 5 or 6 of those varying stages using paddle shifters on the steering wheel. But the C40 just offers 2 modes, one really aggressive one pedal mode and another that basically feels like you've just knocked the car into neutral. The frustrating bit is that you actually have to turn the one pedal mode on and off by digging through and swiping down in a couple of sub-menus on the multimedia screen. The C40's portly heft does come back into the equation when it comes to ride and handling balance. The suspension tune is actually quite firm, which isn't all that surprising, given that it needs to support 2.2 tonnes of metal, glass, rubber and batteries. For the most part, there's a reasonable amount of compliance, though it does get a little bit fidgety on rough surfaces. The rear end can actually bounce quite a bit when you do hit fairly severe bumps or lumps. There is a bit of sportiness in the general tune, and particularly in the front end, and there's certainly no gripes about the grip that you get from the 20-inch tyres. But the experience isn't all that organic from the helm, and it does lack a little bit of fluidity when it comes to the dynamics. That said, the C40 can be quite frisky and it's downright rapid point to point on a twisty road. Safety, well, Volvo has a fine provenance when it comes to safety, and the C40 is no different. The C40 Electric was awarded 5 stars by ANCAP last year and features all of the expected active safety features. But it also offers some really cool systems such as blind spot avoidance via steering intervention and reversing AEB. The C40 Recharge Pure Electric follows the form of the likeable and popular XC40 EV. And this flagship dual motor version can certainly turn on the excitement, even if it doesn't necessarily benchmark in terms of range of performance against its EV competitive set. It's definitely cool and stylish, if not without some shortcomings and some areas that are a bit of an acquired taste. All up, the C40 is a worthy and interesting addition to the emerging EV landscape and good signs for Volvo moving ahead. That's what I think, but how about you? Put your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe while you're at it, and as always, thanks for watching Chasing Cars.